hitting the record. Okay, so we had been talking about the concept of writing and what's allowed and what's not allowed. Okay. So let's say you have we talked about, if you remember, the last thing we left off on was the writing on the side of the book. We said it's allowed to open the book, but that there were some opinions that felt that you were not allowed to do that. So therefore, if you have a choice not to, if you could keep all the opinions, kol hakavod. What if the page rips, right? And maybe not all the way, or whatever. Can you line up two pieces that would be able to, so that you would be able to read it? To take two letters and put them next to each other. I guess similar would be kind of like a puzzle or something like that. And the answer is you're allowed to do it, but you can't glue them together, right? So like, let's say the page has ripped, right? So Modeh is on this page and Ani is on that page, or that part of the piece. And now you want to be able to read, so you're lining it up, aligning it next to one another. That's allowed, but you can't like put a piece of tape on it or glue it together or something like that. Okay. Now, man'ul misparim, דהיינו מנעול שבנוי בצורה כזאת שעל ידי כיוון נכון של הגלגלים לספרות מסוימות שקבועות מראש ניתן לפתחו, מותר להשתמש בו בשבת. So he's talking about a lock that uses numbers, right? So you might have seen some of these locks that you twist them and where the numbers line up, so they create the code which is appropriate, and you're lining up the writing. It's no problem to do that because those are all there from ahead of time, so that's not an issue as well. ונוהגים בזה היתר גם בלי עשיית שינוי כלשהו, יש להם קרנר אחד לסמוך עליו, וכל שכן מנעול שקבועה בו טבלה שניתן לסובבה לפי הספרות שקבועות מראש, ודאי מותר להשתמש בו. It says, and for sure, any kind of, the standard master lock or the Shabbat lock where it's there, no problem. ודאי שמותר להשתמש בו, ואין בו חשש כותב כלל. There's no writing in that at all. שהרי לעולם לא נשארים האותיות או מספרים מסודרים, שעד שמסובב האות השנייה כבר שווה הראשון למקומה. However you would touch it, first of all, there's no writing, but even in the ordering of the numbers, nothing stays, nothing lasts. So there's really no issue in it. I guess someone must have thought that there was a problem with it, that they have to even write it, but there's no issue with using some kind of lock, which we tend to call a Shabbat lock. So that really tells you that it's really not a problem. Okay. Zayin. Mutar lishbor uga or biscuit or chocolate l'tzorech achila. It says you're allowed to break a cake, a cookie, a biscuit, or a piece of chocolate to eat it. Afal pi shirashum alehem tzurat otiyot, even though it may write on it Hershey's, Oreos, or something like that, right? There's very often on the food that we eat, there's letters on it. Bovad shetzurat haktav naaseh meguf hamachal ben she'otiyot shokot ben boltot. He says, provided that the letter and the writing are part of the food, and they're things that you eat, whether they are indented or sticking out or anything like that. He says, and especially if the writing is not in Hebrew, but rather in English. He says, however, in the case where it's made out of some kind of food coloring or like a cream on top of the cake, he says that there are people that are more stringent on. He says, so therefore in that instance, he recommends that to meet all opinions, he recommends that you break it only by eating it, but not by breaking it, by cutting it up. but he says that's not something that is a requirement. So for like a Carvel ice cream cake or something like that, there are opinions that say that you should not cut the Carvel ice cream cake along the letters because the lettering is kind of not part of the cake. But we don't hold by that. We would say that that's totally fine. So any of the lettering that's on the food or eating it is fine. Now notice in the middle he just threw in there that one of the according to most opinions, one of the issues in halacha of writing two letters is that they have to be two Hebrew letters. If they're not Hebrew letters, we don't have to really, I don't say we don't have to worry about it, but it already becomes a dirabanan, not the melacha of the asur from the Torah. So if we're writing English letters, right, so it becomes already less serious. And this is actually, it doesn't mean that you could write English letters, but it's something that we could add into the halacha sometimes when we need a leniency that allows us to do so. So where's a classic case that you see or maybe you know about that we do quite frequently, especially in the Bet Knesset, is if we ask a non-Jew to write something for us on Shabbat. So, excuse me. Sorry, never enough sleep. But what you may notice in the Bet Knesset on Shabbat when we have the aliyot, right? So how do they get transcribed? Right? Someone walks over to a non-Jewish person and tells the non-Jewish person, write down, Joe Hedaya, $52, or whatever the number is. How do we do that? How do we tell the non-Jew to write on Shabbat? It's a melacha, and we're telling them directly. We're not hinting anything like that. So the answer is a couple things. So first of all, when the non-Jew writes in English. And since the non-Jew is writing in English, so already it becomes dirabanan. And therefore it's more. We could be more lenient with it. And then since it's l'tzorech mitzvah, since it's for the usage of the Bet Knesset to give tzedakah and for someone to have a mitzvah and so on, so now you have two dirabanans, right? Me telling the goy is dirabanan number one. The goy writing in English or Spanish but not Hebrew, that's leniency number two. For the purpose of a mitzvah, so therefore we're allowed to do that, and that's why in our Bet Knesset and many others, they're lenient to allow us to tell the non-Jew to write down or to type something or something like that on Shabbat, and we don't have to use other systems that other people use. So therefore, you're seeing here an example of where the fact that it's not Hebrew makes it a leniency. Okay. מותר להשתמש בשבת במדחום שעשוי כרצועת סרט, שאם יש חום לחולה נראות אותיות. So he says you're allowed to use a thermometer that's like a strip, right? And if the person has a fever, right? So it appears, the letters appear. וכשמסירים אותו מעל החולה נמחקות האותיות נעלמות כלעומת שבאו. And if the guy is not sick, or after, if he is sick afterwards, you move it away and the things, fade away. You don't have to worry about that. It's kind of like, almost like those pregnancy tests or something like that, where you have a strip that something appears and then not appears and so on. It's not a problem. One of the reasons is because it's already there. You're just having it appear, so it's not really an issue of writing. Also for the fact that it's allowed. Also for the fact that it's for medical purposes. Another reason why we would be lenient. He says, however, and this is something. He says, "Barur ma'od she'asur be'echlet l'shtamesh b'midchom digital, sharei haf'alato krucha b'chibur ma'agal chashmal." He says, however, to use what has become very in vogue, a digital thermometer today is a different story, and because of the digital purposes, it creates a different issue and a bigger problem. However, in the age of Corona and need to really be on top of things. If that's what we have, then that's what we have. If there's a concern about how ill somebody is and how we treat them and so on, we can use it. It's certainly okay to allow a non-Jewish person to do it, but if there's any real medical need to it, then you don't need to wait for a non-Jewish person. You can do it yourself, and certainly there are situations where that's going to be the case. And who knows? I can foresee, looking at the way things work, when we ultimately go back to the Bet Knesset, Bezrat Hashem, soon, I could see the security guard standing at the front door and, zipping everybody's forehead with the digital thing, because that's what they do in the Far East. Imagine our shul is going to start looking like the airport where you got to, take off your shoes before you come in or something. There's going to be things like that where people are scanned to see how do they feel and so on, at least on the short term. So an example of where this actually comes into play, and for sure in that instance, we will be lenient on that, because you won't have a choice, we're not going to sit there and wait for the good old mercury thermometers to do their trick. Okay, halacha tet na'alayim shebesolya shelahem hakukot otiyot. Says so on shoes, and the bottom of the shoes are often. Sorry guys, really not enough sleep. On the bottom of the soles, letters are imprinted. Says, and when you walk on the ground, so what happens? You leave imprints. Nike, Timberland, or whatever it may be. You walk on the dirt, or you walk especially in the snow, or something like that, and you leave behind the image, the swoosh, the letters, or whatever it may be. And it's not considered kotev for a lot of different reasons, and so therefore you're allowed to wear those. You're allowed to wear those shoes, and it is not a problem. Yesh lakel, and so too, just as you're doing that when you're walking, you're kind of to some degree erasing those letters, and that's true. Also, there was a question on if it's on your, like your socks, and by wearing the socks over the course of the day, it wears off, right? On the bottom, it could be, maybe for laundry purposes, they put that little stamp on there, and by wearing it, maybe the stuff that's sewn in doesn't wear off so easily, but you can imagine some of the stuff that's printed on the sock, which very often is the case, that wears off maybe over the course of a day. It's not a problem. So too, you can wipe with a rag or something like that has letters on it, and even if the letters might come off, none of those are used, and they're all allowed. Okay, let's keep going. He says you shouldn't take food coloring or wine or something like that, and on your tablecloth, with your finger, draw letters or shapes or things like that. That would be writing. On the table, on the tablecloth, or something like that. He says, so too, you shouldn't draw on the, to blow the vapor on the window and then, draw on it. Now, it's not asur from the Torah. It's a lower level asur, but still, we should not do it. Good. But you can go like this, right? Let's say I'm trying to signal to you, right? And I could go, I could do that to make an X or a question mark or whatever. I'm not so good at this, but whatever it is, that's no problem. So too, I could do it on the table, right? If doing it on the table makes it a little easier for the person to picture, I'm not actually creating any letters. I'm just having you follow where my finger goes, no problem. Okay. אין לאדם לתפוס בין אצבעותיו איזה חפץ, לעשות בו תנועות של כתיבתה על כף ידו או על השולחן, כדי להרגיל ידו במלאכת הכתיבה. He says you can't take a pen, even if it doesn't have any ink, right, and start, practicing with the pen. And the reason is because these, so it's two reasons. One is that item is mukseh. And two is we don't want to, there's actually an isur of preparing to write on Shabbat, training to write on Shabbat. הכותב השבת מכונת כתיבה, הרי זה אסור מן התורה משום כותב, כיוון שכתיבה ודפוס נחשבת כתיבה ממש. So if you use some kind of printing press, typewriter, or professional writing tool, that also is asur from the Torah. וכן החותם בחותמת, איסורו הוא מן התורה. So too, if you take a seal or a stamp and you use that, that would be forbidden. וכן הידי מכותב על ידי מחשב אלקטרוני, איסורו מן התורה. So here he says, so too, if you type on your phone or on the computer or something like that, you're creating letters, and you might have thought maybe since the letters that you're writing aren't lasting, that as soon as the screen scrolls, it disappears. It's not really on paper. It doesn't matter. It's considered writing and writing from the Torah, which is a huge reason why our phones would be forbidden on Shabbat, and issues with the Zoom seder and so on and so forth. It's not only the electric. When we use the Zoom, we're creating all sorts of writing and actions and so on and so forth. A number of things that go into using the computer, the TV, the phones, etc. There's a lot of different issues, but writing is one of them because when when you do stuff on the computer, you tend to create letters popping up, and that's writing, and it's asur from the Torah. So a lot of times people ignore that. And that's not a small thing, So if I change the channel, raise the volume, all of a sudden, what starts happening on that TV, right? Or the phone, you start seeing letters. That is kotev, that is writing, and would be forbidden on Shabbat. Hakoteb Shabbat. I just want to finish this section. Hakoteb Shabbat al niyar v'tachat haniyar munach kapi. Pshat haktiva nechakot otiot gam niyar shemetachat lakapi. Yesh omrim shechaya ma'atorah. משום כותב על נייר התחתון, ויש אומרים שעל נייר התחתון עובר איסור מדרבן, כיוון שזה רק רמה. You may remember from when we were younger, they used to have that like carbon copy paper. Now, if you remember this, guys, you remember that? Like it was almost like you wrote on top, and then underneath, the purple cold paper would, this is how they used to make copies when copy machines were too expensive. So you could write that carbon, and then the carbon would make a copy underneath. So there's a question. I mean, we still have it for certain things, for forms and whatever. But that might be an additional problem, right? Because you wrote on top, but also what happens writing on the bottom is also a problem. תביעת אצבעות, דהיינו ששם אצבעו בדיו וחותם על נייר, אסור לעשותו בשבוע משום איסור כתיבה. So a ring that does this is the same problem. מותר לסרוט בציפורן כמין שריטה לסימן על גבי קלף. He says you're allowed to make just a quick little line in the cloth, in the paper, or in the parchment. You could just use your fingernail to create a little bit of an indent, provided that indent is just a line and not a shape. Provided it's just in a copy, right? Provided it's just in a, I had said in a paper. You can't do it in a paper. You could do it just in a parchment because it's softer. But on a paper where you really have to, work to do it, you can't do that. He says you're allowed to fold a piece of paper, right? Like to fold the end of the book, right? To say this is where I'm going to be, even though someone might consider that a problem. It's no problem. You're not. So here's another one that's of course a big one, which Joe Hidey, I know we wanted to talk about this, and maybe I'll try and remember to find it tomorrow. He says it's forbidden to use a camera on Shabbat because even though you're not writing anything, but by the camera capturing images, So that's an issue. וכן אסור לפתח את הפילים, ויש לזה איסור כתיבה ועוד יש כמה איסורים. So there's a lot of issues with using a camera, which again is another thing that happens on Zoom. It's not just the electric that's the issue. It's also the images that are being captured. So that's something that's there. So of course, for security, we could talk about that. As many of us have security cameras and so on and so forth. So Rabbi Ovad Yosef has something on that. So Be'ezrat Hashem, I'll bring something on that tomorrow. But it's a different issue. But the fact that he has to deal with it tells you a lot about it. So let's stop here for today. That's the writing issue. So I see you might have a question. So hold on. Yeah, go ahead.
For the sneakers, when you said that they have some written stuff on the bottom of the sole and you step on the sand, it's the same thing when you step on water also?
Same, no problem.
Same thing.
No problem. Okay.
But Rabbi, one question: what could be the purpose of writing a line on the cloth, like a small line on the cloth?
Why would someone do that? I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'm not sure. Yeah,
Right.
I don't. Well, you can't write. I mean, normally why we write long cloth is so that you can write something. But obviously, that can't be what you're doing it for, because then it would be problematic. So, yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Take care.
Bye, guys. Thank you. Have a good
See you
day.
in a little bit. Yep.